Charles, the King's Leech. He's
Definitely.
He's a dope, right?
He's imploding. I mean, it's just on a minute-by-minute basis. I mean, I was
like a Titanic mini sub.
It's absurd. I mean, the reality of NATO is that the military contribution, in quotes, of the U.S. military is about 90% of the military contribution of the group.
Right.
And in part because it's the U.S. that has been so continuously involved in perpetual war missions over the last 20, 25 years, disproportionately shouldering the military activity or the burden of the military activity. So it's incredibly, in my mind, insulting for this prick, President Crapweasel, to screw up what he did with the king in the UK, and then arrive for the first night of the NATO summit and say, you know what, fuck all you guys, I can't stay up, I'm going to sleep. That's just, you don't do that.
It's the most unimpressive possible thing somebody can do for this huge meeting. Like everybody's there to meet him, and he's like, eh.
It's kind of the reverse of when I was working for the Japanese, and I was young to have the position I had, and they were saying, well, make sure, and they were saying, when you go to Japan for this trip, make sure that you behave properly. And I said, look, I've been to Japan about 10 times. I understand protocol. I've had meetings at a very high level. Don't worry, I won't screw up. And then around that time, HW goes to meet with the emperor and hurls on his crotch. I think it basically hurls on his crotch.
Well, but he set a pretty low bar.
So I went into my mind. I said, listen, I'm not going to do what this dude did. Don't worry.
Right.
But I think I could do almost anything and it'll be fine.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. It's definitely.
So it's actually hurling.
Vomiting incident.
Yeah, this was literally right around the time that I was heading over to Japan for some important meetings.
It's funny how they just refer to it as the Bush vomiting incident, like it's the only time he ever vomited. It's definitely the most notable.
Well, I mean, to her, was it on the prime minister or the emperor?
January 8th, 1992.
Yeah, he vomited in the prime minister's lap. He hurled on his lap. He fainted.
That had to be a pretty intense situation.
He was probably, who knows what he was imagining. But
did they ever determine what the cause of it was?
Who knows?
How'd you like dinner, President Bush? Oh. He's not a sushi fan. Oh, the aftermath. The incident was widely reported, coming just weeks before the New Hampshire presidential primary and became fodder for the nation's comedians. I bet you Jay Leno went nuts on that.
Yeah.
Anyway, he puked. Oh, it's spoofed in the movie Hot Shots Part 2, which featured Charlie Sheen.
Yeah.
Nothing like a good vomiting incident, Charles.
Yeah. But so seriously, I mean, for this guy who is frankly so disgusting in terms of, we have all these stories coming out that he's not nice to his staff. In fact, and people are really drilling into that. Early in the transition, he said that anybody on his staff who is rude to a subordinate will be immediately fired, is what he said. And now the story comes out.
Though.
Not me, of course.
Yeah,
I would have
anybody else.
Exactly. There's nothing wrong with that. So he's mean to his staff. Folks on the left, that Maureen Dowd, who's just insufferable, and I generally can't listen to her, but she has this piece in the New York Times recently about you have 7 grandkids, Mr. President. He refuses to acknowledge.
Right.
And that truly is shameful. That Hunter is the smartest guy he knows. The smartest guy he knows had a kid with a stripper and refuses.
I think she's not a stripper.
Ecdysiast.
What is that?
Stripper.
No, Lee said she's actually not a stripper.
It doesn't matter whether
they made that up.
Yeah. But the point is, it's his kid, and I think this article is getting a lot of attention amongst the voting group that Biden really needs, which is independent women, independent suburban women. This was
the saddest aspect, Charles, is that this little girl is wearing all kinds of president swag.
Where'd she get this stuff?
Well, because they just bought it at the gift shop, I guess. But she knows that her grandfather is the president, and all the news reports say she's so proud of that. I think she's too young to yet realize how they've disrespected her. And I mean, what a terrible... It's just sad for this little girl. She's just a 4-year-old kid, has no idea what's going on.
Right. And some of what we've been talking about, which I think we've both gotten used to, that we somehow pick conversation topics and discuss them way ahead of the pack. But as we've been talking about for several months now, I think I've been saying, and maybe you've been saying as well, that Democratic elders, party elders, are increasingly thinking, it's hook time for this guy because he's not going to make it. He's not going to make it across the line, and there's significant risk about whether, if he were nominated, whether he'd live until the election / the re-inauguration. So I have been thinking for some time that the Democratic Party elders would say, no, Joe, you've got it. You've had your time. You're in the history books. You've occupied the White House. You can have a presidential library. You could do all this stuff, maybe, but you cannot screw the fortunes of the Democratic Party, because we need to have a credible person, and it's not,
no, we got a Mensa member waiting in the wings.
She is definitely not a Mensa member. Is that
joking. No, obviously she's an idiot.
No, she's not that smart.
Right. We need to take a moment to reflect on this moment.
Right.
And spend some time in the moment that we're all together, because it comes in the morning.
And it's historic.
Yeah. But she added that it comes in the morning, and then she laughed like people knew what she was talking about. But what the hell is she talking about?
I mean, that guy, and what was it, Being There, Chauncey Gardner, makes more sense than this idiot.
Unbelievable.
And so anyway, I got to believe, whether it's Alex Soros or you name the type of person that might be in the Democratic Party, I think they're increasingly going around. And Dana Perino, on the Five, and she's got her own show, recently was quoted as saying that she'd been, this past weekend, she'd been with Democratic friends, and a number of Democratic friends told her, they don't want to be named the Democratic friends, but they said that Dana could share the story, so she did, that a significant number of Democrats are telling Dana and other people, and Harold Ford agreed with this, that the word is going out that the elders in the party have got major questions about Joe Biden, and think that he should, for the good of the country, drop out of the race. And
drop out of the universe.
Well, yeah, but he really should. I mean, because it would give a chance for the rest of the Democratic Party to figure out who could be a credible candidate out there. And I think with the recent revelation that they're basically definitely targeting Trump and letting Hunter and his pals off the hooks, and now this thing with Gal Luft.
That was bad.
It certainly looks as if Merrick Garland and others are trying to protect Biden and Obama. And that's what's been going on here. And so you attack Trump and the Trump supporters, and you protect Obama, you protect Biden. And the public is not buying that. The independents are not buying it. The independents are going to be the most important voting bloc in 2024, I think. And certainly the country club Republicans, DeSantis, he's not going to go anywhere. Pence is not going anywhere. These Steny Hoyer and Nancy Pelosi, the kleptocrats in the Democratic Party, they're not going anywhere. AOC, I think, slit her own wrist by which is probably easier for her to do, playing with razor blades. But she slit her wrist and immediately saying that Biden is doing a good job, and she's supporting Biden.
She loves cluster bombs. She loves an unexploded ordnance. Let's put some on the playground for kids.
Yeah, I'm getting married. I might have a kid soon. I want a cluster bomb in my sandbox for my kid.
Right.
Why wouldn't anybody in Europe want that? I mean, she's just so uncool. I mean, it's tough at this point to decide who is more uncool. AOC or Zelensky? It's a close call.
Well, cool is a subjective finding. I think the issue is she's dumb. Lee had a very intelligent analyst, Mark Sloboda, was on his show yesterday, talking about these different munitions and what they're used for and why this particular thing would or would be effective in this type of war. And he spoke about how the United States military-industrial complex over the last 20 years has evolved to have all these like incredibly high-tech, expensive things for doing these counterinsurgency wars throughout the Middle East. And it's not designed for this type of traditional, ammunition-based ground war in the middle of Europe there. And that Russia is designed for that, and that we're running out of everything. We don't have, if we get into a war now, we don't have our own stuff. And this, sending them these cluster bombs is basically just clearing out old crap from the basement that they have no use for, just throw into the middle of the battle.
But it's outrageous. I mean, it's outrageous on many different levels. I mean, we've never declared war on Ukraine.
These bombs are not going to even be effective for what they're trying to do.
Sorry, I should say for Russia. We haven't declared war in the Ukraine theater.
Right.
We haven't identified who the enemy is. We haven't actually identified who the ally is. Right? And,
I thought it was Ukraine.
Well, but isn't the whole purpose of the Constitution, Congress shall declare war?
Right.
So we're totally gutting that.
Yeah.
We've been in this theater since February of 2023. Is it 23, I guess? 2022.
22, yeah, it's over
2022.
a year.
And at this point, we're out of ammunition because our folks over there are doing such a great job. Does that sound credible to you?
No.
And
then, the other thing that they were saying, Charles, I don't know if this is true. In fact, it sounds a little screwy to me, but they're saying that the Wagner boss who led the mutiny is likely dead, and the Putin meeting was possibly staged. Who is the genius retired general who came up with this piece of information? And I wonder if it's just a guess. The ads are crazy. Who is this guy?
I don't know. General Robert, somebody other. Abrams.
Did he make the tanks? Yeah, he's just guessing. These guys come on the news and they start talking about all kinds of stuff. I don't think they know what they're talking about.
This guy looks like he's in the middle of some serious disease here.
He looks like he'd be the character in a horror movie.
Right.
Yeah, this is not a warrior. I mean, when I had this conversation with Trevor Colt the other day, and this is a guy who's been on multiple tours through Iraq and Afghanistan. Look, I have no firsthand experience, obviously, but of course that's something that changes you fundamentally. And it's not like me deciding I'm going to go from 3D movies in Hollywood to making YouTube videos. That's a pretty short hop. Somebody who's going to say, this restaurant business is great. Why don't I become a professional warlord? It just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, unless you're, who's that British chef who terrorizes everybody?
Oh,
Jamie Oliver, is it? Or?
No, it's Gordon Ramsay.
I could see him.
That guy, you put him in the middle of the type of, just even listening to these stories that Trevor was telling me. I'm like your friends getting blown up 5 feet away from you.
Oh, the soup Nazi, put him in.
It's funny, but none of these guys, I don't think, are cut out for this. And I mean, it's a very unique type of person that could even create this type of business. Something very, very weird about.
Well, I would also say I think it's a mistake for the United States to have Blackwater, and I think it's a mistake for any other country to do the same thing. I think the citizens, we're supposed to be have a citizen-controlled military.
Right.
And we don't. If the military can subcontract out and tolerate whatever Blackwater may be doing, which could conceivably involve violating the Geneva Convention. So either we want to be a party to an international system that governs, how wars should be prosecuted, or we don't. Either we want the Congress to have control and oversight over spending, or we don't. And this was founded when Clinton was president.
Well, and they keep changing the name, which makes me sort of curious. Oh, it merged with Triple Canopy. Yeah, I don't know. Law Enforcement Training, Logistics, and Security Services. Risk management.
Right, exactly.
There's all kinds of ways you can describe this sort of stuff, but it's like, we kill people for money.
Right. And lots of it.
Yeah. Now, we should also let people know, Charles, that we're going to be getting into some of these conversations about what's going on with NATO and some of the stuff that's happening in Congress right now with Christopher Wray. I think it's still happening. We're going to be talking about that in the First Amendment Forum in just about 15 minutes. People will be able to join us there on odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com, and subscribestar.com, and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. They were talking kind of a lot about the July 4th ruling. In fact, Jim Jordan opened with that, and Christopher Wray just sort of said, like, well, that was like a week ago. I haven't really read that yet.
I mean, again, it's just...
Yeah.
There should be, Jordan should have the right to go through with the televised spectacle and then summon Wray for a private meeting to Jordan's office and say, listen, okay, this gamesmanship is over.
Right.
Okay? We are a co-equal branch of government. You do not sit on top of the House of Representatives. We have legitimate oversight questions. You're not going to evade answering the questions by saying, I've got sources and methods and open this and open that. Oh, I've got to catch my
open investigations.
I've got my private jet to the Adirondacks. That's not the way it's going to work anymore. Okay? So you've tried this. We see how you operate. You forced members of Congress to go into a SCIF to read a redacted version of a non-secret memo. That's a stunt. Okay? For every time you do that, we're going to do 10 stunts. Okay? The first stunt that you're going to find out about when you try to leave to go back to the FBI is you won't.
Closed.
There's no vehicle for you.
Yeah.
Okay, you can't. You're going to have to walk back. I'm sorry.
Call an Uber.
Yeah, no Uber.
Imran Awan is driving for Uber.
Is he really?
Well, he was at one point. That was an issue.
Because he's just. I mean, it's obvious that at this stage to me, and we'll talk more about this in the First Amendment Forum. It is obvious that the FBI was heavily involved in many of the last elections. Many, not just the 2020 election.
Not just the U.S.
And not just the U.S., but the FBI has gotten into the business of election throwing, either by suppressing damaging information that would hurt the ability of somebody like, Joe Biden to get elected, or suppressing damaging information about the Clintons, suppressing damaging information about Obama, and promoting scurrilous hoax-based information about opponents, and then pressuring corporate-owned media and social media to do its bidding. That is just so far away from fighting terror, from fighting, whatever the legitimate goals of this organization may be. Election meddling is not one of them.
No. It was an interesting, obviously it's still going, and I want to listen to it again because there's so much that gets said in these things. It's very frustrating because, you would like to think that, Congress is made up of Americans, right? We've got Democrats and Republicans, but you would hope that there's some common ground where everybody wants to not have law enforcement intruding on their personal communications and whatever. The Democrats are just basically making it all about January 6th, Mar-a-Lago, and Trump indictments. And the Republicans are saying, hey, wait a minute. You guys are just opening investigations and doing thousands of illegal queries into the FISA database. One Republican asked Wray if they do parallel construction. And he's like, well, I don't know what you're talking about. What is that? He's like, do you ever look at the FISA database and find something and then go tell law enforcement to do something so that they can have a sort of in the clear finding of that same act? And he's like, well, I don't know. Not to my knowledge. Yeah. So
it would be really funny to do if we could find a what do they call that? A body...
double?
A body language expert.
Oh, yeah.
To have as Wray is talking, 3 body language experts, simultaneously dialing it up. Do they really?
Well, there's a couple YouTube channels. There's a body language panel.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
And that in the old days, you look at the way in which I say that's a cocky person's way of sitting, right? He's forward.
Oh, yeah.
And he's moving around you're not going to touch me. And if you had the body language panel going and they determined the guy was lying, you'd have his seat attached to some kind of a
Shock
lever, a lever, and he'd go right into like an ice cold bath. And you have to come back out all dripping wet in the air conditioning and stay there and continue answering questions. That would be amusing.
This is the type of thing that's worth watching and kind of like taking notes. First of all, Christopher Ray, he's aging. His well-coiffed, his hairdo is looking, I mean, I'm not really one to talk. His hair is all staying in his head, but he's going gray even
He's
more.
going pink too. So there's in the sun too much.
Maybe. Yeah. This guy from New Jersey is quite good.
He used to be a Democrat, this guy.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He sort of seems like a sort of a well-meaning guy, but there's a bunch of different behavior, body language kind of
this kind of a
specialists.
thing, right?
Yeah. They probably will look at it. These guys get into all kinds of stuff. Everybody's interested in Amber Heard and Meghan and Harry. I mean, not everybody.
I'm not.
So what did King Charles say about all this stupid Joe Biden?
I think it was more just watching him there in the Windsor Palace Garden with the guards, and Biden's walking around in a daze. Apparently, he followed that up with it's just when you see Charles's face, he's looking like, really? What?
Yeah, look at that. We need a separate magazine for Joe Biden for stupid people.
Yeah, and Charles is like 73, or what is he? He's 75. I don't know. And Biden just comes across like in that Seinfeld episode,
where the dad walks in and he's like, yeah.
Like
74, Charles.
74. Okay.
Yeah, 1948. Buckingham Palace source confirms King Charles was entirely comfortable.
Yeah, of course. Stiff upper lip and all that.
With Biden touching the monarch on the
I
back.
don't believe that.
Are you not allowed to touch them at all? Probably
You're
not.
not supposed to. No.
Yeah.
And some people, including me, do not like strangers touching them at all.
Right.
And in particular in a public setting.
Well, here he's shaking his hand.
That's fine, but just that move there is bullshit. That's a power move.
And then look at this. He's driving. Oh, because they bring all of Biden's vehicles with him.
Right.
You're not going to find a Suburban in England.
Right. Yeah. I got to believe these hats. I mean,
he's like, nice hat. Where'd you get that? He's
I'm
like off talking to this guy.
Get me one of them.
But wasn't that the issue? Is that Biden is talking to the hat guy instead of the king?
Look, there's the John Kerry.
Is it?
Yeah.
What's he doing there?
I don't know.
Is it John Kerry and
Yes.
not just somebody who looks like him?
I think it is.
Oh, because he's the climate czar, and they were having some kind of climate conversation.
He's the fool, I thought.
There's only so many people who can get into these conversations and tolerate it, really.
I mean, the combined IQ of those three guys is not even 80, probably. Biden, Charles, talking to plants, and Kerry.
Really bad. Really bad.
But then he comes, staying on Biden for a second, then he goes to Vilnius, and there's the leader of Lithuania literally had to move him into the right place and
Oh yeah, and they asked him to sign something, and he's like, "God save the Queen, man."
Did he say that again?
No, that was the other day. But he's like, "Sign what?" He just had no idea what he was going on. What about Turkey with all this hemming and hawing about Sweden? They were just trying to get some jets, I think.
Get something, and they'll say they said it today, but then circumstances have changed, and they'll be back from war. I mean,
right.
How Biden controlled the summit. He didn't even show up, basically. I mean, this is brazen. This is CNN. This is like, I don't know.
Hagiography.
Total propaganda.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. Pretty bad. Well, we've got just about one more minute until we head over to the First Amendment Forum, Charles. Anything you want to kind of take us out with or prep people for the discussion in the First Amendment Forum?
Well, I think we're going to be drilling down a little bit as to what it is that the deep state's been covering up. Or attempting to cover up, and why they play on with this charade of pretending that this guy is compos mentis. I mean, he's not.
Yeah. It's starting to become, I think, undeniable. There's certain things that are undeniable, but even in that Chris Wray congressional testimony, they still, with regard to 2006, they're like, everybody knows Russia interfered with the election, because they're still talking about
16.
Yeah, but they're still talking about the Durham report, and it found that they didn't. And they were trying to get Ray to like say that there was no basis to investigate. And he's like, well, they had a basis to evaluate the information, but it found that they acted improperly when they, opened a full investigation. It's like, look, this is, you're splitting hairs here. The fact is you guys lied. You made up evidence in order to be able to get this FISA warrant. They spoke about that. And also they're talking about 702. There's a lot of details of this stuff that I think the public does not understand well. I definitely don't understand well, so it's likely other people don't. And this is what they're doing. We've got legal experts in the FBI who are working a scam. This is like going to buy a used car and you don't know anything about cars.
Right, exactly.
Anyway, well, we'll be back in 5 minutes. I hope people will join us on odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com, and subscribestar.com, and patreon.com/crowdsource.